Okay. So, start na.
Thank you.
Okay.
Parang, mas parang sila ba mag-present? Mangyayari. Although, yun naman, kaya lang, kaya lang. Yan, hindi ba although, ay, Ma'am Sheila, send this.
All right, sound check, sound check. Also for our participants in the virtual room. Sound check. Sound check. Sound check, sound check. All right, so virtual room can hear us. All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session. So we'd like to welcome our participants to the ACE and World Nuclear Association.
Ay, tammark mo, hindi picture ha.
Yun na nakatamart.
So we'd like to remind our to please mute your microphone. Welcome to the ACE-WNA, New Nuclear Power Technologies and New Applications for the ASEAN Region Workshop. Okay. So, to officially open this workshop, we will hear the welcoming remarks. First, we will have Undersecretary Felix William B. Pantabella of the Department of Energy, Philippines, and also the SOE leader, Philippines.
Salamat ulit, Sheila. To my fellow focal points in the Nuclear Energy Cooperation Subsector Network, to our experts from the World Nuclear Association, the ASEAN Center for Energy, to our resource persons, to our participants. Ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon. It is with great pleasure that we acknowledge and welcome all of you to this training course on new nuclear power technologies and new applications for ASEAN region. On behalf of the Philippine Department of Energy Secretary Rafael Lutilla, we would like to express our sincerest gratitude to the ASEAN Center for Energy, the World Nuclear Association, and the roster of expert organizations for making this undertaking possible and extending this important capacity building to all our attendees today. The World Nuclear Association has been promoting a wider understanding of nuclear energy among key international influencers by producing reliable information, developing common industry positions, and contributing to the energy debate that's going on. As the Philippine Nuclear Energy Program Interagency Committee implements its national position on the nuclear energy program through the Executive Order number 164, signed last year by President Duterte, we would likewise aim to strengthen our technical capacities in order to move towards the next steps of the nuclear infrastructure milestones. Currently, the Philippines is reviewing and writing down a new framework through its Congress, a new framework for nuclear power. And the debate is going on in the House of Representatives. It will move to the plenary. And the next step will be for the Senate to debate and come up with its own version. So we have a parallel approach because for now, we are developing the the nuclear energy program, and we recognize the importance of knowledge in the field of new and advanced technologies in the nuclear energy applications. With this, we welcome our experts' presentations on these areas to deepen our understanding of the potential of advanced nuclear technologies, such as small modular reactors and its applications for nuclear energy. We hope that the participants of this training course will be able to perceive knowledge that can be used in our future undertakings as part of our initiatives on nuclear power development. Please take note that our experts have been preparing and have been fully prepared for this presentation. And to the last minute, they plan to synchronize their actions, the presentations, so that you here in this room and our participants in our virtual rooms will be able to understand the subject matter thoroughly. So again, on behalf of DOE Secretary Lotilla, the chairperson of the National Energy Program Interagency Committee, we welcome you all and we look forward to your active participation in this workshop. Again, maraming salamat. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Pantabella. Now we will hear the welcome remarks from Mr. Christopher G. Zamora, Senior Manager of APAEC Department, ASEAN Center for Energy. Sir Chris?
Thank you very much, Ms. Sheila, for the kind introduction. On behalf of Dr. Nugi Agia-Utama, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energy, allow me to deliver his welcoming remarks. Mr. Felix William P. Puentebella, Undersecretary, the Department of Energy, and the Senior Official and Energy Leader of the Philippines. Mr. Kingley, World Harmony Program from World Nuclear Association, distinguished participants from the ASEAN member states, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant and good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, again, I would like to express my appreciation and convey my gratitude to the Department of Energy of the Philippines as the host of the 13th Nuclear Energy Cooperation Subsector Network meeting and its associated meetings. Also, I would like to thank the World Nuclear Association for the strong support in co-organizing the workshop today. Moreover, I would like also to thank all the delegates for taking time out of your very busy schedules to participate in this workshop. Likewise, I would like to express my appreciation and convey my gratitude to all the participants and speakers for spending your valuable time for participating in this event. Ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN's energy demand has been increasing rapidly and is forecast to continue in the future. The ASEAN Center for Energy's 7th ASEAN Energy Outlook reveals that total primary energy supply in the region has increased sharply, reaching 654 MTOE in 2020, which is approximately 1.6 times the 2005 level. Fossil fuels currently dominate the region's energy mix, but with an increasing reliance on fossil fuel imports, the ASEAN region could face serious energy security challenges. As a result, nuclear energy is considered as one of the options to ensure energy security in the region while transitioning to a low-carbon economy. The 40th ASEAN Ministers on Energy meeting, or AMEM, recognized the potential for ASEAN member states to explore nuclear energy for power generation in the future, given the emerging technologies and new developments in the field of nuclear energy. The ministers encourage ASEAN to assess long-term potential options for identifying the scope for further regional cooperation, especially in techno-economic feasibility and development of scientific and technological capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, to support the implementation of the Civilian Nuclear Energy Program of the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APAE, the cooperation between ACE and WNA was formalized through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding in March of 2021. ACE and WNA successfully organized the training of trainers for nuclear communicators in May of 2022, which focused on best practices for effective nuclear communication and case-based exercises on nuclear communication challenges. Today, in this 13th NEC SSN and its associated meetings, ACE and WNA are jointly co-organizing the workshop on small modular reactors and new nuclear energy applications. The workshop will explore how new nuclear power technologies such as the advanced SMRs and microreactors can complement larger scale reactors, and how they can open new markets and applications for nuclear energy, such as district heating, high temperature process heat, hydrogen production, or electricity generation for small or remote grids. Ladies and gentlemen, nuclear energy application in power generation remains an emerging technology in the region. Some ASEAN member states, particularly Indonesia and the Philippines, are still in their earliest stage of technology adoption. However, with the aspiration of ASEAN countries and accelerating energy transition towards higher emission reduction and achieving their respective national determined contribution, or the NDC targets, countries are gradually seeing the significance of nuclear power as they move towards a low-carbon economy. We are hoping that through our workshop today, we are able to produce a fruitful discussion regarding emerging nuclear technologies. Therefore, we would like to encourage active participation from all of you in today's workshop. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and these welcoming remarks is delivered for and on behalf of Dr. Nuki Agia-Otama, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energy. Thank you very much once again for listening.
Thank you very much, Sir Chris. Now we will hear the welcome remarks from Mr. King Lee, Director, Harmony Program, World Nuclear Association.
Dear ladies, gentlemen, friends and colleagues, I would like to thank our host, Philippine Department of Energy and the ASEAN Center for Energy for organizing this workshop. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this ASEAN Center for Energy and World Nuclear Association co-organized workshop on small modular reactor and new application for the ASEAN region. I am King Lee, Director of Harmony Program of World Nuclear Association. World Nuclear Association welcomes the continued support to ASEAN Center for Energy program to support countries on their capacity building on nuclear energy. I'm delighted that the World Nuclear Association is able to support this in-person workshop with the aim to enhance understanding in the ASEAN region of the potential advanced nuclear technologies. The World Nuclear Association is the international organization that represents the global nuclear industry. Our mission is to promote a wider understanding of nuclear energy amongst key international stakeholders by producing authoritative information and developing common industry position and contributing to the energy debate. Our members encompasses the full nuclear fuel cycle, covering uranium mining, conversion, enrichment, new nuclear fuel manufacturers, and nuclear power utilities, as well as reactor vendors, power plant construction company, as well as waste management organization. There is huge potential for nuclear energy in the ASEAN region, given the growing demand for clean energy. Advanced small modular reactors and microreactors could complement existing large-scale reactors to open up new markets and applications for nuclear energy, such as district heating, high-temperature processing, hydrogen production, and electricity generation for small and remote grids. Countries are increasingly looking to nuclear energy to meet their increasing energy demand, as well as addressing climate and energy security goals. Nuclear energy is a proven source of clean energy. Currently, there are 438 operational reactors operating in 32 countries, with a further 58 nuclear reactors under construction. Around 28 countries have expressed interest in nuclear power and are considering planning or actively working to include nuclear in their energy mix. To give some recent example of energy support in the Asian region, in January this year, Korea have announced to increase the share of nuclear power to nearly 35% of their electricity mix by 2030. China currently has 55 operating nuclear reactors, with a further 22 reactors under construction. In December last year, a major shift of Japan energy policy, where it adopted a plan to extend the lifetime of nuclear reactor, replacing old and planning to build new power plants. Bangladesh is currently constructing 2 nuclear power plants, with the first unit intending to start operating to 2024. Many of the ASEAN countries, including Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand, and other ASEAN countries, have indicated an interest to adopt nuclear energy as part of their energy mix. Small modular reactors and advanced reactors could complement large-scale reactors and help to decarbonize the entire economy. The key drivers for SMR technology include reduced capital investment, shorter construction time, siting flexibility, and the application to a wider range of users. According to IAEA, at least 20 member states have an active national program for SMR design and technology development. Currently, there are more than 80 SMR design under development for advanced application at different phases of development. Some SMR are already in operation, with some under construction, with many going through regulatory approval. Just some of the examples of SMR technology application. The academic Lochrock, a floating nuclear power reactor, started operation in 2019, providing electricity and district heating to an Arctic remote region. High temperature reactor in China have started operation last year, providing high temperature heat. Also, 2 reactors, SMRs, are under construction, further under construction in Argentina and in China. I'm delighted that we have a number of expert speakers today, and they will provide you with more details. So today, our workshop consists of 2 sessions. First is a panel session with a short presentation from each of our speakers on SMR, and followed by a moderated panel discussion. This will be followed by a roundtable discussion on a range of topics where the participants will group into a small group and explore those topics in detail. I look forward to the workshop and welcome your active participation throughout the workshop to explore the opportunities of SMR for the ASEAN region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. At this point, we'd like to invite our participants and our resource person for a group photo, similar to what we did this morning. So please. All right. All right, may we please request our participants to proceed in front? Resource persons at the stage. All right. Member states can occupy the front seats. And yes, Navias, can you come in the middle?
Iba naman tayo.
Para maiba naman. We still have 2 vacant seats up front. Senator Siya.
Dr. Alvio.
Can we request here, Dr. Nao? Vince, please. Hey.
Compress.
Maulog ko.
Wala ko yung mata. Ay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Be careful. Oo naman. O bakit? Dito, bakit natin. So, is this on? Quick check, can everybody hear me okay? Am I being mic'd? I need to push a button? Sorry. How about now? Very good. Excellent. Okay, how's everybody feeling? Into the second session of the first day. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping points very quickly. First of all, I'd like to say it's great to be back at these events in person. It's been a long time. For many of us, lockdown only finished comparatively recently. And I just think it's fantastic to be seeing people face to face and having these frank and open discussions about nuclear energy, its different applications, its benefits and its issues. Really just wonderful to see everybody. It's truly a privilege to be moderating this event on small modular reactors and alternative nuclear applications to just electricity production. We have an absolutely fantastic lineup for you of diverse professionals, so with different backgrounds and from different organizations who all had to essentially mobilize at short notice. So please, once I've listed their names, give them a warm welcome because they really deserve it. Without further ado, the speakers who will be talking to you today include Dongmin Kim, Senior Manager from KHNP. We'll also have Igor Simonov, who's Vice President at Rosatom International Network for Southeast Asia. And we'll have Jan Hold, the Executive Vice President for Seaborg, who's based in Singapore. So please give them a warm welcome. Okay, I have a lot of great things to say, so please get your questions ready. The way that this session is going to work is that there will be some presentations first, as each presenter has 15 minutes to deliver some slides which they've prepared. Then we'll get everybody onto the stage. I will start the ball rolling by asking some questions, but then I'm going to turn it over to you guys in the audience. So as our presenters are speaking, please get your questions ready. And let's have a fantastic and interactive panel session. Thank you very much. And if I could call to the stage for the first speaker, please, Ms. Dongmin Kim.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dongmin Kim. I'm a senior major at KHNP. I've been working for KHNP for past 13 years. I've been assigned and lived in UAE and Egypt for, for the purpose of, as them being the newcomers of the nuclear industry. And then I've recently assigned for the overseas project, looking over Philippine project and a few other areas. So I, on behalf of KTMP, understand what newcomers need, starting from the training to localization, and hope we can take the part to make the world brighter in all aspects. So let's start the presentation. The last one. Yes, thank you. Okay. How do I move with this? Sorry. How do I move to next slide? I know that, but he gave me the clicker, so I thought that would work, but I'm guessing it's not. So next slide again. Sorry, I guess it's not working. So the next slide. So KHMP being the biggest utility of Korea, taking in charge of the 30% of the domestic demand. And we not only have nuclear, but we also have hydro and hydro pump, and also doing some of the renewables. Next slide. So KHMP have 25 units in operation, 3 under construction, and 2 currently being shut down, unfortunately. And next slide. Next slide. I'm just going to skim through some of it because of the time limitation, but if you need more information, let me know. And this is APR 1400 design features that are being exported to UAE and other countries right now. And this is Gen 3 reactor with advanced designs and with enhanced safety and complying with up-to-date regulatory requirements. Next slide. Oh, yeah, thank you. And these are the certification we gained through EUR and US NRC for its design features, its design reactors. And these are the advanced features of APR 1400 to reinforce safety features against the severe accident. And even with the safety features enhanced, we were able to manage the construction period within the 48 months in UAE. And let's go over to SMR. And SMR, I'm just going to leave more of the technical stuff to the experts there, but we are currently doing some of the ISMR right now, which is a little bit larger in size. And we believe that ISMR is more safe and economical in a sense. And we are currently in schedule to get the government approval for the R&D project this year, and also start the first operation by 2031 in Korea. So some of the nuclear programs that I would like to introduce. This is the nuclear management program that we have in Korea, dealing with the organization, human resources, and also training, and also procedures in aspects of operation and maintenance and administration. Also, we're dealing with some of the process programs in dealing with quality assurance and some of the spare parts and engineering program. And this comes as a package deal when we actually work with newcomers country. So when we introduce them to a nuclear field, we do have a whole system being transferred to that country as well. That did happen for UAE, and that's what we're planning for other countries. It's not working again. Next slide. Oh, one before. So this is Team Korea. Whenever we do a nuclear project, we do start with the training program, which is in dealing with Kings to develop nuclear professionals that are in need for newcomer countries. And then we do have research institute that are working with us. And we do have designer companies and maintenance companies and operating companies also taking a part. Next slide. we may have Team Korea, but we're also willing to work with the overseas companies as well. So we are also willing to develop local suppliers and manufacturers to mutually grow together for a bigger nuke industry. Next slide. So nuke product, what do we have overseas? So in Korea, as you may all know, we started with the Baraka project in UAE, and that did happen in 2000. We signed a contract by 2009. We were able to be there by late 2010 and 2011, started the construction, and we're able to make it on time for 3 units. And then now we are on the way to go for 4th units. Next slide. So these are some of the countries that we're working with, being a potential client. So we are currently working with Philippines, Romania, Egypt, being the most potential, countries that are working with, and we are also working in some of the European countries as well. Next slide. So let's talk about Philippines since we're here. So let's talk about Bataan project. So Bataan was almost done constructing and doing almost the hot functional at the end of the post-hot functional test by 1984, and then it was stopped ever since 1986. So Bataan was designed in 1977, which needs to be reevaluated for the latest code and standard. If you want to talk about if it's still economical to rehabilitate Bataan, I would say with all my conscience that it is so, because with the enhanced safety, Bataan is still the project that could go on, because Korea Unit 2 is the exact same design in Korea, and it's going to go under same refurbishment process. It was also starting building in 1977, exact same year. It's a sister plant, and that plant is going under refurbishment from this April in Korea too. So we are having those latest technology standards that I have listed there. That's going to be applied exactly the same for Bataan. So we have the experience, and we have the exact same sister plant in Korea, and that has been operated safely, and will be operated safely after the refurbishment. And that only takes 4 or 5 years max. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dong, and I really appreciate that you kept the time there. That's absolutely terrific. Okay, Mr. Igor Simonov, would you like to come to the stage?
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about the thing that is extremely dear to our heart, the nuclear energy and the particular SMR technology. In terms of my personal introduction, I have been with the Rosatom Corporation for quite some time in multiple positions since 2007, I believe, and my current role as a regional vice president for Southeast Asia, based physically out of Singapore, so that wasn't as bad of a trip for me as for some of my colleagues, not so far, but still. So I'm here to talk to you about what we do, what we think about the SMR technology, how it is progressing, and obviously how we feel it will help Philippines reach the carbon neutrality goals, the reduction of cost for generation, and so on and so forth. So the clicker doesn't work, right? Can I have a next slide? Okay, as they say, first talk about your company, about yourself, then about your company, and then about your product, right? So just to get you familiar slightly with the company I work for Rosatom Corporation, we are a team of about 300,000 people in total globally. We have built the first nuclear power plant in the world, been around for more than 70 years. We currently implement overseas about 34 NPP projects at different stage of development. And we're the world's second biggest operator of nuclear power plants, generating roughly 200 billion kilowatt hours per year using our own proprietary technology in Russia. So we have 38 units in Russia, and we try to build about 34 overseas. For that, we accumulated about $140 billion in contract portfolio backlog. A very important point that we always try to bring to the general public. By doing so, over the course that we have been around for 75 years or so, we have managed to reduce the carbon footprint only by our design of nuclear power plants by 207 million tons. This is how much less of CO2 has been introduced to the atmosphere because of the nuclear that we have, we bet on nuclear, we chose nuclear. Okay, can I have the next slide? Yes, so people from, guys from ASEAN Center for Energy would probably be very upset if I didn't go into this part. Just very briefly, so Russia is a longtime partner for ASEAN countries. The ASEAN-Russian dialogue was launched in 1991. In 2005, we have secured an agreement to develop significant areas of collaboration. And we're currently working on the ASEAN-Russian Energy Cooperation Work Plan for 2021 to 2025. It's being finalized as we speak. And Rosatom is contributing into that plan as far as nuclear power and to some degree renewable technologies go. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one, but just briefly kind of wanted to say the first slide said that Rosatom is doing business in 50 countries, which is true, but it's not necessarily just nuclear power. We are doing healthcare, medical isotope supplies and things like that. So this kind of lists of our activities in particular Southeast Asia region. So can I have a next slide? Okay, now, the main thing, the thing that I came today to talk to you about is what we do as far as SMRs go. So it has been mentioned in the opening remarks about academic Lomonosov NPP. It is in fact the first PWR and the first SMR in the world that is currently in operation, all in-house, built and designed by our company. It is generating power as we speak at Chukotka region near the city of Quebec, providing cogeneration of electricity and heat. It has been doing so since December 2019. It uses the KLT40S reactor type, two of those, each with 35 megawatts. So the total installed capacity is 70 megawatt with a design life cycle of 40 years and 3 years fuel cycle. So by doing so, we kind of prove that the concept works. It has a 10 years maintenance period. But if I may have the next slide. So we didn't stop at that, and we kind of took it to the next level and currently improving on the previous design to what we call an optimized floating nuclear power plant. In Q4 2020, we have started the technical design process. It is improvement on every level of what academic Lomonosov used to be. I mean, not used to be, is. It is shorter by 28 meters with a total length of 112. It is significantly lighter by 4.3 thousand tons, total displacement, I think 18,000 tons. It is much more power by 30%. So we're using a different reactor type called RITM200. So the total installed capacity is 100 megawatt. It has a longer life, if you would like to call it. So it's by 20 years. So it has a 60 years design life of this particular technology. And we already are in the process of bringing those into operation in our country. And I just want to maybe kind of foresee a potential question. Actually, okay, can I have the next slide? Okay, so, I mean, it's a fair ask to say, okay, so that's floating, that's naval based. What about land based? So we do that as well. So we use the same reactor technology, our ACE-200, to develop a land-based modular nuclear power plant with two reactor pressure vessels, total installed capacity of 110 megawatt. The availability factor, as for all PWRs, exceeds significantly 90%. So our friends for KP know this very well because they held the record for the availability factor for quite some time in Korea. And so construction period of 3 to 4 years. Actually, I'm gonna say that from notice to proceed, and this is important to understand because this is a question that gets asked in the newcomer countries at the early stage of development. If we say yes, we were practically today, when are we going to have the first electricity fitted to the grid? And I think I'm safe at saying that from notice to proceed into actual, design, site surveys, construction, fuel loading, technical launch, and so on and so on and so on, so on, first electricity going, I think we can manage within 7 years' time for the land-based, 6 years for naval base. I think that's a fair assessment. And my final point on the technology, not going deeper into going too technical about it. Another question, well, is it something that is brand new that just you have it on the drawing? That is not brand new. Those reactors have been operational with a KLT-40 on nuclear icebreakers for quite some time. And as far as our TM200 at Rosatom, we have already built 3 nuclear icebreakers powered by their TM200 that were commissioned in 2020 and 2022. And additionally, we are building 2 more nuclear icebreakers using our ATM200. So that's 5 our ATM200s, 3 of them already powering nuclear propelled vessels as we speak. So this is something that's very much proven and being developed. So can I have a next slide? Okay, so very similar to what Dongming has shown. We have also been in a very friendly and productive cooperation mode with our friends from the Philippines, from Department of Energy, Department of Science and Technology, and we have implemented several stages, starting from the beginning with a very broad framework in 2017 MOU in comparison with peaceful use of nuclear energy, moving into memorandum of intent on elaboration of the pre-feasibility study with Department of Energy of the Philippines on small nuclear power plants, to actually developing that feasibility study and submitting it in May 2022 to Department of Energy. So long story short, all the experience that I have tried to communicate to you in the sense of what we do in SMRs, what we have developed in SMRs, has been kind of presented to DOE, and all the questions that we try to answer have been answered. And if there are any more questions, we're more than available to take it to the next step and answer them as well. Can I have any next slide? Okay, so I'm not probably going to go very deep into the findings of our feasibility assessment of how well SMR fits into the energy infrastructure of the Philippines, but we see roughly, definitely a place for 4 land-based units, total 220 megawatt each, or 8 units of 110 megawatt each, which would allow a very significant reduction in carbon footprint and the cost of electricity generation. And from location, we see obviously the Visayas with a 14.2% in electricity consumption. We of course see the Luzon Island with 72.2% of total energy consumption, and Mindanao with 13.6%. So there's definitely a place for SMR in the Philippines. Okay, next slide. Okay, so at Rosatom, it has been mentioned in the opening remarks that we have representatives from the fuel, from the engineering operational side. So we do all those things and more So we're not a traditional vendor that goes in and signs an EPC contract and just builds a power plant and leaves. We also provide support in developing nuclear infrastructure, building up public acceptance, human resources development, because it's a very challenging task to bring nuclear power into energy mix, but at the same time, extremely rewarding financially and ecologically and other ways. Can we have the next slide? We have been doing some outreach programs for to raise the public awareness and public acceptance of nuclear technology, because we understand it is a factor where you have to be 100% transparent and you have to be in a constant dialogue with every member of the community, and in order to communicate the benefits, the pros and cons of this decision, in order for it to be informed, in order for it to happen. And my final slide, I wasn't timing my presentation, and feel I'm out of it. Okay, good. Yeah, so that's maybe why I'm rushing a little bit. And we welcome to visit. We actually, if you Google the academical manuals of Philippines journalists, you will find a segment that was on the news in the Philippines about it's actually in Tagalog, all the things. I'm not quite entirely sure what they say, but I hope it is something good. That visited our NPP. Actually, but bring warm clothes. It is the most northern located nuclear power plant in the world. So do not come in winter, and probably even if you don't, bring some warm clothes with you. But even if you don't want to freeze too much, you can visit it virtually. We actually host the virtual tours of our nuclear power facility to show what it's like. We brought media from New York Times, from Financial Times, and we welcome any PR involvement in order to, it's better to see one time than, hear about it 100 times. So this concludes my presentation of what we do regarding SMRs at Rosheim, and I welcome a live, engaging, comprehensive discussion that will follow. And again, thank our friends from ACE-WNA, from DOE, from PNRI, from EUC, and from the ASEAN for making this happen, for an ability to talk to you about the things that we feel is extremely beneficial for the globe. Thank you.
That's two on time and on budget nuclear presentations, which is what I like to see. So, Jan Holm, over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to visit to us. Compared to the two previous speakers, we are a small company, but still really looking forward to share some of the work that we do. So my name is Jan Holm. I am the Executive Vice President of Seaborg. I'm based in Singapore, and it's partly because we see a big potential in this market. Aside from working with nuclear, I am also a board member of a shipyard, which is relevant to what we do. So, as I mentioned, I'm based in Singapore. Next slide, please. I'm based in Singapore, and it's because we see the Southeast Asia as a major potential market. We see a growing economy. We have one of the fastest growing here in the Philippines. You have commitments for decarbonization, which needs to be met. But also you have a challenge with the occasion in terms of the 3-month monsoon that will challenge wind and solar power. You have limited potential for hydro. There's not a lot of high altitude rivers in the region, and that limits the potential for hydroelectricity. There's geothermal, but not enough in order to meet the demand. So we are left with a few choices. We are basically left with oil and gas and coal, which are traditional high density energies. all nuclear. So we look at the region, there's still being planned coal-fired power plants, and that's what we want to move away from. Next slide, please. So a bit about Seaborg. As I mentioned, I'm based in Singapore, and it's because you see the market here. Seaborg was developed or started by scientists from the Danish Technological University back in 2014, and they had this idea that they needed to find something to make a difference on the climate crisis. And they came up with this idea that we need to do something which we can scale fast and which is cheap enough that we can sell it without subsidy. So we started this company in 2014. It's still privately held and privately funded. We have gotten grants from EU and to support our development, and also investment from the EU in the next round. We're currently 120 employees. Of those, we have imported or we have brought in a lot of people from different nationalities because Denmark is not traditionally a nuclear country. And we have more than 40 PhDs in our group. They are mainly within history, nuclear physics, and material science. We're headquartered in Copenhagen, and then we have office in Singapore. That's where I am, and it's mainly for business development. But then we also have private presence in Korea. So we're partnering with Samsung Heavy Industry on building our nuclear barges. And then actually we have partnering with Korea, nuclear power that Kim just talked about. We're developing a fourth generation nuclear reactor based on a molten salt reactor. We are expecting to deploy before 2030. Actually, we are planning to deploy in 2028, and we'll be commercially deploying as soon after. Next slide, please. So if we look at the molten salt reactor, what is the difference? Why is it interesting? Well, the secret sauce is in the salt. We're basically using a conventional fission process, but instead of water, it's salt, fluoride salt, which is a rock below 409 degrees. We heat it up to 600 to 700 degrees, and it gets the same viscosity as water. That means that we can actually run normal fission process where we use salt as a coolant. The difference is, of course, if you have a crack in the reactor and nuclear material escapes, it will immediately cool down and turn back into a rock. You can see in our laboratory that when we stop heating the salt, within 60 seconds it starts to solidify. It will be too heavy to form a nuclear plant, so you won't have widespread pollution, and it will not dissolve in water and air. The other benefit of it is it can't melt down or explode. There's a negative feedback loop. It boils at 1500 degrees before it will ever reach even close to that. The negative feedback loop will kick in and basically cool down the process again. It cannot be weaponized, which was very important for us in our export case, that we can sell this to newcomer countries. And of course, what's been more and more important is the 12 years operation, so it basically gives you energy security. If you move on to the next slide, please. So the idea is to mass produce it. We expect to be able to deliver them within 3 years from first contract signature. We will build them, test them, and commission them in Korea, and then we'll be able to deliver within 3 years. They're developed on barges, and there's two reasons for that. One is on the supply chain, to be able to mass produce centrally, but also for the licensing process, which I'll come back to later. They come in 4 different sizes. So the small size, which is a 200 megawatt electric, it has 2 reactors on it. It's about 80 meters long. And then they come in 2, 4, 6, and 800 megawatts. The biggest ones are around 300 meters. To give you some idea of the output, The smallest one with the 200 megawatt electric will be able to power 500,000 households. It's of course carbon neutral, not renewable, carbon neutral. It comes with a fuel cycle of 12 years and 9% plus capacity factor. And next slide, please. Here you have a diagram of the barge. It basically comes with 2 reactors installed in front, a steam turbine, and on this one we have portrayed also the transformer station. At the after 12 years, we will come and install 2 reactors in the remaining 2 empty slots, and then operate for the next 12 years, so 24 years in total. This is a model of a 200 megawatt electric barge, but if you want it bigger, basically it's a power module in the center that's expanded to 400, 600, 800. Next slide, please. If we then look at the exclusion zone and the emergency planning zone, we're looking at something which is 100 meters on the exclusion zone and about 750 meters on the emergency planning zone. This means that you can actually place it quite close to industrial zones. It means that you can place it close to cities, etc. And of course, that changes the applications of where it can be used. Next slide, please. Another way of looking at it is, of course, how does it compare to other renewable sources of energy. If you are to deliver 1 terawatt a year using biomass, you need 540 square kilometers. If you use a compact molten salt reactor, you need 0.2 square kilometers. It basically frees up a lot of land. It's 2,700 in terms of how the land is used. Next slide. And you just press on to the all come up. I think I've done most of this one. So basically, the time and life cycle. Just then let me just press again and again. Yeah, thanks. So the life cycle is basically 3 years from when you order the barge. Then it comes to 12 years of fuel installed, ready to operate. In the center or midway through, we will deliver another 2 reactors and operate for another 12 years. And then what's important is at the end of the 24 years, we will be able to pick up the reactor or the entire barge and recommission it for you. So as opposed to until you will not have to deal with the fuel or the waste spent fuel. Next slide. On the licensing side, as I mentioned, there's 2 reasons why we put it on barge. One is the supply chain, so the ability to mass produce it and also remove it at the end. The other reason is that we want to use a global licensing process. So basically what we have noticed is that American Bureau of Shipping, but also some of the other classification societies like Lloyd's Registers and Bureau Veritas, aside from being big in shipping and ensuring integrity of shipping assets, they also actually do some of the same things on nuclear. And we want to use that model. So basically, we will license it in a nuclear country. We will use a classification society to ensure the integrity of the nuclear vessel and the nuclear reactor. And then we will flag it under a quality flag. A few of the flag states in the world have started opening up. The US have already opened up. The UK opened up in December. And I know of at least 2 more thinking about doing it. So what does it mean? Let's move to the next slide. That's my time. So this is what I tried to explain. Basically, we will license it. We will use the UN frameworks, the IMO and the International Atomic Energy Agency rules. We have to comply in full with all of it. We'll use a classification society like ABS to ensure the integrity of the nuclear power and the asset. We will flag it under a quality flag. As I mentioned, the UK and US have already opened up. Then, of course, there will be regulations on the site. Move to the next slide. If you basically compare conventional nuclear, you will have to have approval for the site, you will have approval of the tech, you will have approval of the commissioning and the construction. So what we're aiming at doing in C4 is basically to standardize everything else with site approval. And we will be working with local regulators and have already started that process in the region on preparing for that. So we'll come with a type approved nuclear reactor, a standard concept on the parts, which has been centrally manufactured and produced, and we will then deliver it ready and commissioned to operate. So that's of course a process that will be available to everyone the moment it has been established, but we are one of the drivers. So at the beginning, I said our founders said we need to find something which can scale fast, and Samsung Heavy Industry in the yard that we're working with them on can build 4,800 megawatt barges a year. That's 32 gigawatt. So that's substantial in terms of the ability to scale up, and that's only one yard in the region. So we'll be able to really scale this up and bring it to the region. The other thing that I said is that we may need to make it cheap and cheap enough so that it will be competitive. And from one of the projects that we've been doing a lot of feasibility studies on, including 52 reactors, we came up with a levelized cost of energy of 30 to 40 euro per megawatt. I know it is competitive for the region. It's certainly competitive in the Philippines, but also in some of the other countries that I talked to, like Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, etc. It's definitely competitive for them. If you look at the landed cost of hydrogen, we end up on something called around 2.4 euro per kilo. If you compare that to hydrogen produced from LNG, it's about 20% more expensive, but this is excluding any kind of CO2 production. Next slide. All right, this just sums it up. Basically, produce it in Korea, deliver them on barges, different sizes, and deliver to the world. My time is up. Next slide. Yes, that was it. Thank you so much.
All right, at this point, I would like to invite all our presenters back to the stage. Please take a seat. Also, just a quick note, which I should have made at the beginning of this session. But just to note that this is I guess it's a closed session with people who've been invited in. We just ask that before you share any of the materials which you might be looking at today, that you do check with the presenters just to sort of respect their confidentiality there. We have one more microphone. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to start with you actually. First of all, thank you for the presentation, very interesting. Page. But this one. Yeah. So I guess just I mean, perhaps the obvious question, but what are the advantages and disadvantages of floating and ocean-based nuclear power plants as you see them? And why do you think they might be especially suitable to the ASEAN region? And
Okay, advantages, I think, or the biggest potential is that you look at this technology, it actually has the ability not only to make a country carbon neutral, but can actually turn it into a net export of energy. If you look at the advances that we produce, it takes up 0.2 square kilometers for big ones. 11 of those will be able to power a country like Singapore. There's only 2.2 square kilometers of seabed. That actually has the ability to turn a country into a net export of energy. Let's say we allocate 4.4, so we can use twice as much energy as possible as needed. So definitely a huge upside in this. If we look at today's consumption of uranium, there's still enough for the next 100 to 120 years at this current consumption rate. So we should have ample time to look at other forms that will come up with new technologies to reprocess waste and develop fertile reactors. Downsides, of course, is on the fourth generation reactors. The regulatory framework is often not in place yet. So a lot of the regulatory frameworks are around pressurized nuclear reactors. And it would also be great to use forums like the Asian Energy Center to harmonize the region.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I mean, that leads sort of naturally to a follow-up question. So you touched upon the licensing, essentially, and you mentioned this specific process, but maybe could you explain some of the key challenges which you think face there? And also, just in terms of like international treaties, is there anything in particular of which you're aware that might affect a floating nuclear government?
Big question. It sounds so easy when we talk about it and explain it. But we do see an interest, you see an interest locally in the region around it to accommodate and amend legislation to allow this type of technology. But the regulatory process is really, I mean, this is it's not a technology that keeps it away the line, it's a regulatory process.
Interesting. Question for you. Yeah. So I think it is fair to say that Team Korea is now well on the way to successfully completing the power project. So quite a remarkable accomplishment. UAE going to almost 25% of electricity in just over 10 years. What has the Korean nuclear industry learned from this experience?
Well, I think UAE had an IAEA report in 2008, but they had signed a contract with Korea in 2009. So the government determination to actually start the nuclear has been big on that. So we had a strong government support from UAE, and that has helped us move forward with the project on time. So that's one way for us to make the project on time and on budget. So I think the government determination and the support was a big thing from the project. Yeah, that's what made it happen, actually. Yeah.
What about for the ASEAN?
ASEAN region, was they decide on nuclear project? I think they need to move forward with it, but without the doubts. I mean, like he said, Korea also has the roadmap set up for the newcomers as well, from human resources. And to the, like I said, from the localization technology transfer and so on. So once government decides on it, they need to move forward and then do the feasibility study and then sign a contract, then move forward with it as a whole package, what Rosatom and us and other few companies maybe have to offer to help countries to introduce the nuclear power to its own country. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well then, heading over to Igor now. What tangible results in SMR development do you think that are out there that really shows that the concept works?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of touched upon it in the presentation, and thanks for asking because I did miss a few points on that. So we believe in Rosatom that, we don't do others what we don't do to ourselves. So we, as I said, we build academic commons to be used in Russia and is operating right now. So that's the first tangible result that, as I said, you're welcome to visit and see for yourself. We are currently developing first land-based SMR using RATM 200 that will be connected to the grid by 2028. Also in Russia, to supply electricity to a gold mine production. Also in a very remote region, kind of proving the point at this very remote but located industrial production and mining facilities that require significant power, but are either off-grid or in a very remote location. That's a very suitable solution. And as far as the naval-based floating NPT using also ATM, so the advanced floating nuclear reactor, we have signed an agreement to build 4 more. So 3 plus 1 to service 3 constant jet rating. Also for a copper producer in Russia, they will be commissioned, I think, from 31 to 27 to 31. And as I said, 3 nuclear icebreakers using RATM 200 exist as we speak, and 2 more are going to be commissioned. So this is kind of my main message: is don't think about SMRs the way you would think about maybe something. I don't want to talk about confusion, but something that's very, very in the distant future that we're still waiting for the first to happen. No, they are available right now as we speak, especially with TWRs. The pressurized water reactor. So it's just a matter of, as Domi said, a political will in the country to go in that direction, and it is almost off the shelf development.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to just ask some general questions to the panel now. And I mean, if you look worldwide at the moment, and places like the US, Canada, there are like lots of different small modular reactors development. But then in certain other countries, I think that they, correct me if you disagree, but such as Russia and South Korea, there tends to be more of a focus on like specific design, which then have sort of like state support. Would you like to comment on sort of the I guess the sort of the free market sort of SMR versus sort of like the state-led approach to SMR development? So what do you see as being the strength and weakness?
Well, I'll get the discussion going, and I'll jump on this Renee first.
Yeah.
If you guys have more time to prepare, but I'll stall. Because at Rosatom, we kind of tried everything at this point. We have the molten salt reactor designs, we have with the BN 600, BN 800, and we're currently developing a large scale BN 1200. So those are fast neutron reactors using the sodium coolant, and those have their own place in the whole nuclear picture. So we don't shy away from nuclear as the word. You have so many opportunities open up, right? So those are more focused not on just power generation, but also on the question of closing out the nuclear fuel cycle. Because again, you cannot ignore the topic of accumulating expanded nuclear fuel. And we believe in closing the nuclear fuel cycle as the way to go, because you increase the utilization of uranium from like 4% to 60%, maybe wrong numbers, but we don't see expanded nuclear fuel as spec. We even use a different word. It hasn't irradiated nuclear fuel. So we can use it further by reprocessing and putting it back into the nuclear cycle, extremely extending, not that uranium is a scarce resource, but pretty much plenty of it, but you can even push that even further. We have obviously our DMK reactors, and we have the DDRs all the way from 400 to 1200, which is Gen 3 plus, the new ones. And now we're going with SMRs. So with SMRs, we maybe went in a little bit different direction than our friends from Seaboard, and we kind of took a lower hanging fruit for us, and we went PWR, because that's something that we've been operating in the submarines and icebreakers for decades now. So it's just a question of kind of flipping the concept of the also ship, also reactor inside of it, but instead of propelling the vessel, it actually feeds the power to the grid, making the design for us and works much simpler. So that's the way we went. But there is so many, as you said, there is just dozens and dozens. And I think Bill Gates is supporting the standard weight reactor, which is a whole different story. Also, I could develop in Russia. People forget about this. And then there's fusion, and so on and so on. We have micro reactors. There are reactors that are being developed to be placed underwater. Like the French. So yeah, so we went to the PWR because it's something we know and do very well.
Does anybody else want to come in on that question? State-led versus private approach.
I don't think, well, if you question with the amount of money that is brought in to companies in the US and the Vaccine Production Act and by DOE, if they're not already also certainly state supported at least or heavy support actually. I can say from perspective like ours, we are the private fund. We have we can't afford to not focus on something which we can deliver very fast. So we have taken a reactor that was developed back in the 50s and 60s, and we are making a few as possible elements to it. Solve some issues around corrosion, etc., in order to bring it to the market as quickly as possible. I mean, yeah, I think that's the main difference. We can't afford to go bankrupt if we don't get it out there as soon as possible. Sure. Not that we have one bankrupt, for sure.
All right. Well then,
Welcome as a panel discussion. Question of the board. Please put your hand up. Yeah, please put your hand up if you have any questions for the panel that's being discussed, and anyone in the audience, please online, please raise any questions in the chat.
yeah, please. Whilst you're getting your questions together, we'll just ask the panel another really quick one, or depending on how long you answer it, I guess a really long one, but so looking at the ASEAN region now, potential new coverage, what do you think are the biggest challenges and opportunities for SMR and domestic applications in the region? What about the opportunities?
Okay, since we represent different developers, we obviously closely monitor and technology owners, we monitor the situation in ASEAN. And the reason for that is that kind of to us that have accepted nuclear power either in our countries or sort of being so dramatic in our hearts, is that the solution is obvious. That during this COP21 conference that took place last year, right? There was a public announcement, if you will, of a range of CO2 emitters by energy source, and nuclear bid every other option, including wind. So wind power is more emitted in terms of the CO2 than nuclear, according to that survey. So making it the lowest CO2 impact. That's kind of speaking on opportunities and pros, and go into challenges. And then we look at the countries like Indonesia, for example, that at the same time is saying we're going to cut down CO2 emission by 40%. And then you look at the energy mix and it's mostly coal. And or a combination of some renewable energy, and they're removing the peak tariffs and so on and so forth. So like, okay, so you cannot have it both ways. You cannot reduce the CO2 emission to carbon neutrality or close to it and have a base load capacity with coal or even gas, even with carbon capture technology and so on. So it's like, well, for us, the answer is obvious. Nuclear. Why are you saying this? Nuclear. Why are we talking about something else? I got the answer. So we kind of don't, in a way, understand that why it is still not here in the region. I don't in particular because we have other countries in Southeast Asia. Now, the challenges is that I think it's stigmatized to some degree. You have to stop chatting about this word and just kind of look at energy, you know, green versus non-green, polluting versus non-polluting, expensive versus cheap. And as long as you try to balance what they call an energy trilemma, available, you know, cheap and safe, and just try to be, as the Secretary of Community said once, non-biased in terms of the technology, absolute non-biased approach, just look at the numbers, nothing else, then it's going to be nuclear, definitely. And then those challenges will disappear. But as long as you just kind of, then it is becoming difficult. Obviously, there are other interests are in play, but that's maybe a discussion for a whole different day. You want to add?
I mean, I did work on a Philippine product for a while, and the electricity unit price in Philippines is actually 3 times higher than what is of Korea. So was I wanted to ask about the cost effectiveness and then what generates the the economic benefits of what nuclear can offer. So a lot of ASEAN countries do have higher unit price per kilowatt than most of the developed countries that with the nuclear power. So for that aspect, even when I lived in Egypt, they had a higher electricity price than what is of Korea. So, and it's just them building 4 nuclear power plants right now. At the end, they're going to have more benefits for the industry developments and all other aspects that eventually will help them with the economics.
I encourage everybody to put their hands up if we have some questions and anything in the room. Would you want to share that quickly? All right. Okay, so fair enough. I think the first question has been given. Lisa.
Thank you. The question is to skip. In one of your slides, I think you have some potential advantage for your technology to be implemented, and there is no Indonesia there.
Indonesia is still.
My question to you is, Korea is already give up with our country because we are progressing on establishing the NPO. Yes, of course. I was asked once by president of Korean Nuclear Association back in 2014. Tell me, when will Indonesia build the nuclear power plant? At the time, I could not answer in satisfactorily. But we are currently progressing toward the nuclear. We put the nuclear option in our net zero emission roadmap in the energy sector.
Right.
We are projecting to have 31 gigawatt nuclear power plant by 2060. So I'm very curious because there is no Indonesia in your.
Okay, let me, I can comment. I mean, the guys sitting right across me in the office that actually working on Indonesia, by the way. The countries up there is the one that actually started the feasibility study with. So they are really, those countries have actually taken a step forward, a little forward than Indonesia might have. So, I mean, Indonesia, that is definitely one of our, our potential clients that we are working with and we are very interested in. It depends on those countries are the ones that are really been working with for a longer term. We have not given up.
Okay,
Can I have a follow-up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good at this, yeah.
Denmark has already visited our ministry. We have still ongoing cooperation with Rosatom, and for the recent development, we two US-based SMR technology providers and probably persuade to implement the SMR technology in Indonesia. So our position, Ministry of Energy of Indonesia, is currently open to all kinds of technology. So I wonder if Korea would like to also involve in future development of the power plant and things like that.
I think if it's okay with everybody, we'll go for about 5 minutes longer, because we have several more questions. All right, to the gentleman in the back.
Thank you. For the Korean speaker, you mentioned that ACE-WNA could rehabilitate the nuclear plant 4 to 5 years.
That is
Is that correct?
Well, the exact schedule we can announce it after doing the feasibility study that we've been proposing. So the actual schedule can be, but that's what we're expecting. That is correct.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is that first, regarding our political situation, our president gets elected in once every 6 years.
Right.
So there's still time to rehabilitate the nuclear plant within the term of the current president.
Right.
But I guess the DOE schedule is 2032. Frankly, I don't know the basis for that.
Right.
So I hope the South Koreans can convince our government to fast track
Okay.
so that we can have a nuclear plant within the term of the current president. Thank you.
And we're talking in our language, telling him to behave.
All right,
The problem with Bataan is not really the science, it's more on the political in the looking at it. So problem is we cannot move it from one province to another. So we're looking into other ways of pushing the nuclear. And I think it's more really a political way. 6 years is how we elect the president, but the timeline is really 3 years because we have the midterms every 3 years, and it changes the political landscape. So the key now is just to pass the Congress law for nuclear, and from there we will move forward. I don't think the Bataan leaders will change their minds in how many days. So it's pointless if we will pursue a track that's so difficult. So yes, we will look at the numbers, but we have to consider other factors in moving forward.
I'm willing to take one more question if there's one addressed to the panel.
Actually, for the panel, we have one hand raised from the virtual room.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Tony, your college. All right, and the yours.
That was somebody in the room, was it?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's one more question at the back. And I'm afraid this will have to be the last one, because I can see that the break is coming out. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon. So I'd like to ask the prospect of using SMR for renewable energy as a support capacity. I heard that some are pushing for that, but some believe that although we can do it, but it is more expensive. I'm talking here of support to variable RT. Thank you.
I think that's a general question about, if I've got this right, whether it's better to take a sort of complementary approach with renewables or SMR is more competition. I think it is. Did I interpret that correctly?
Yeah, we agree. Because that's what kind of our vision is, and I think pass the mic to Lumian first. I think it's very common view. We don't even talk about ourselves anymore as nuclear company, right? We talk about energy. So we are one of the biggest and now at some point we were the biggest operator of the wind farms in Russia that we don't really talk about that much. We have more than 1 gigawatt under development. And we have localized our own turbines, our own carbon fiber production, and we also move in SMR direction as well. So we don't think base load and renewable are and SMR versus renewable is a competition. I think it's a complementation, right? So that's why we bet on both of those kind of directions at our company at least, right? So we think there are advantages. You cannot really go at the current level of technology. Well, Denmark maybe is going in that direction, quite successful with wind energy, but having just renewables as of today, so you still have to have the base load. And when you look at the base load, then the next question is, do you still commit to the decarbonization? If you do, then you have to have a carbon neutral base load. And that again brings us back to nuclear, large scale or SMR. And then you have the renewables. So it's a combination that complements both and helps to bring not only pollution, but the cost of less cost of electricity down.
In Dennis, I have a comment on this. So it's correct that Denmark gets 40% of its electricity from wind. It's only possible because of a very specific thing. There's a peninsula called Jylland, which is directly integrated into the German grid. So we get our base load from German gas and coal. But on the east side, there are two islands, they're integrated. The electricity grid there is fully integrated into the Swedish grid. That's based on nuclear. And that's how we are able to, for periods, having such a high percentage of wind. We would be having blackouts and tripping and all the problems that intermittent energy would provide if we didn't have Germany and Sweden to hold the hand on us. On the complementarity part of it, I think it's what we see, again, being Danish, we have one of the biggest wind turbine manufacturers in the world, Vestas. And when we see, they look at us initially as direct heads on competition, but they also start to realize that when you implement enough intermittent energy into a grid system, there is a limit to how much you can take and put in, and you will trip. And unless you kind of stabilize the same grid with some really strong high capacity factor baseload, i.e. nuclear, you can't keep on selling more intermittent energy. So without enough baseload, there's a limit to the renewable. If you then add more baseload via nuclear, you can actually sell more renewable. So they start looking at ourselves in a different way as an enabler for them to sell more of their technology instead of eating their pie.
You want to? Okay. All right. Well, on that note, then I would like to bring this panel session to a close. Please join me in giving a very special thank you to our presenter. We'll be here during the break and afterwards for our closed group discussion. So please come up and talk to them, ask them any questions you want. And once again, thank you to everybody.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, everyone. At this point, we will have a 20-minute coffee break. So the session will resume if you need that.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will now resume with the workshop. And we will now commence with session B, topical roundtables. So for the discussion of the select issues in small group.
We're progressing the second part of the workshop. The second part of the workshop, we have identified a range of topics. There's 5 topics here. So what we have asked the facilitator to facilitate the discussion around those 5 topics. So myself, I will facilitate the discussion on licensing and regulation, and Ms. King on nuclear power plant operation and maintenance. And Eagle will facilitate the discussion around capability building, and Yaron will on financing, and David on waste management disposal. So how we're going to organize this is if one of each facilitator will spread himself around the room in this space, and whichever topic you would like to involved in discussion, the go to that facilitator. The aim of the session is to focus on that topic, to address any issue and concern that you would like to raise, and particularly highlighting particular points that you would like to discuss. We'll welcome if one of the participants, after the discussion, we report back so we can understand what are the particular issue and concern that the participant have on it. Hopefully that's clear. If not clear, then please put your hand up. Okay. There is on the schedule is an hour, but I think for the kind of discussion, but I think that as we're right late, I would suggest we keep the time and finish at 4:20. The discussion that should have enough time. I'll put myself at that corner.
All right, so licensing and regulation. So how do you want to do this, Debbie? Group na lang per topic. So may mga subcommittees, you belong to subcommittees which, familiar naman. Let's group it. So licensing and regulation. Nandun yung regulator. Sino pupunta dyan? Parang walang gustong gawin. All right. Sige, next, NPP operations and maintenance. Where's it? NPC is here. All right. VP Rohan? Okay. So who would like to join the NPP operations and maintenance? Transco? Yes, konting movement lang para nakaka-join niyo yung group. We'd also like to encourage AMS representatives. So the NDP operations and maintenance capability There will be experts from our resource person that will be assigned to particular needs. I think the most number of teammates here will be the waste management and disposal. Okay. Who else wants to join the financing team? So break up. Many of agencies with 2 reps. You can break up. Please. All right, please. This is the waste management. Uh, CILG, where would you like to join? Waste management is here. One. Right, so the ILG 1 for MPP operations, 1 in waste management. Director Galvez, doon ka po sa charge ka po sa See, I think Grace is already here, so pwede po tayo sa license and regulations or NPP. Waste po ito. Operation po yan, sir. Regulations, ito tama, di po sa DNJ. Ay, DOJ, sorry. So licensing and regulation, we have, of course, the FDA, the DOE legal, PNRI, DTI, SKMO, okay, Department of Justice. Okay, participants, we'd like to remind you of the time. It's now 4:20. Thank you. All right, groups, we need to wrap up so that we can proceed to the report of the plenary. Kindly designate someone to represent your respective teams. Okay, can you please flash the list of groups? Okay, participants. Okay. Licensing and regulation, we speak. Director Arcilia. NPP operations and maintenance, who will speak? NPP operations group. Secretary from the National Power Corporation. Capability building human resource, who will speak? Dr. Alvi. Financing, Director Akan. Waste management and disposal team, Director Ami. All right, we all have our speakers. Okay, we would now like to invite the speaker for the licensing and regulation team, Director Carlo Garcia. Sir? Round of applause, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, my teammates. Anyway, so I suppose I'll be talking from experience because we are the regulators. Several points that I'll be brief about this that we came up. The most important one is pursue an ASEAN-wide common licensing template. And this is actually very important. Example, if we have a nuclear design that we can discuss among the ASEAN countries to harmonize the regulations. It will, for example, one example, exclusion zones. How far do you construct a nuclear plant from a volcano or from a fault? The Philippines has decreed some distances, but I'd like to listen to what Indonesia has because they have more volcanoes than the Philippines. So this we can discuss. And another one among the local organizations, because if you have to license a nuclear power plant, there will be many regulations, is to, again, talk to each other. there is a difficult, see, the problem is politicians get elected every 3 years, but nuclear plants have to last 60 years. So if you're going to subject the nuclear plants to the whims of changes of like political land use and then so it will immediately affect the economy and also the availability of electricity. And so those things have to be discussed. And I'm very glad to have learned like DOE has this one-stop shop for regulations that we can probably adopt. If the law gets approved, nuclear law, there will be a licensing just for safety. That is the main thrust of that law. So this is the main lesson that I got. So thank you, King, because at least if we talk to ourselves, especially for SMRs, in our current law now being proposed in Congress, we say that if an SMR has been inspected in a country by the regulator and they have experience, we can just we may adopt that licensing to the country. That will save a lot of time because otherwise, if you have to go to the license, this is what delays many projects. So this is an important collaboration in licensing. That's all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Director Arcilia. Now we go to the NTP operations and maintenance. I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Dante Caraos, National Power Corporation.
Okay, a pleasant good afternoon to all, to delegates from the ASEAN group. In behalf of the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, the plant entitled is Philippine Nuclear Power Plant before. So the government embarked to nuclear last in 1974, they started construction. And then suddenly in 1986, the plant was ready to operate. Actually, it was conducted functional test. It was also passed the OSART 1 and 2, the operational safety review of the International Atomic Energy Agency or the IAEA. And then sudden change in the administration, the plant was moved. And the fuel was sold to Siemens, facilitated by the Department of Finance in the amount of $25 million. And so then 1997 was the start. We are now, the maintenance of the plant was in a not priority. So we're just taking preserve and maintain the plant based on the Executive Order number 55 issued by former President Aquino and Executive Order number 265 of President Ramos. And then today, the last administration, President Duterte, the start of the discussion about the nuclear and the Executive Order number 116 and 164, including the BNTP to include in the nuclear program. And so, and the President Marcos, he is created our congressman from Mark Quango is the chairman in the Special Committee on Nuclear Energy. So for the operation and maintenance, we cannot operate because it's mobile. So we just maintain based on these executive orders. Thank you, and President Dr. again.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Dante. For the capability building human resource development, let's all welcome Dr. Albi Astronomo from the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our group, we were grateful to have very good insights from Igor, from Iwapo-san, and from Megumi-san. We have representatives from DOE, PNRI, and also from Indonesia, and we got really good insights. So with regards to the capacity building, we had this very important information, of course, that it requires majority of the resources will have to go to the human resource development. But the decision will have to depend on a lot of factors. And right now, with the target of the DOE to build 2.5 gigawatt capacity by 2032, the human resource development has to be developed by phase to address the requirement for that target. And one of the things that was asked to us is, how do we define what we need? There are a lot of training providers, there are a lot of international organizations who are capable of providing the training. But what they need from us is to define what is required. Mama Lisa and I were just discussing that we need to conduct, of course, a training needs assessment, first of the NEP-IAC and all the other organizations involved in the nuclear power program, such as the potential operating organization and also the academe, and of course the vocational or the technical skills that we will require. Also the idea of what kind of contract will be made with a vendor. Will it be a turnkey project? Will it be a project that how many % will be localized and how many will be outsourced? So those are factors that has to be considered. And we are grateful that the IEA also has this competency framework that could serve as a reference in preparing this roadmap of building the human resource requirements. So thank you. That's for
Thank you very much, Dr. Abby. Now for the financing team, let's all welcome Director Augusto Cesar Navarro. From the Department of Energy and Finance.
Good afternoon. Before I proceed, I want you to meet the members of my team, our team. Let's start with Ms. Marina from the Ministry of Energy, Malaysia. And then Ms. Clarita and Garcia from the Department of Energy, Philippines. Mr. Danny Javier from the Department of Energy. And yours truly, Ms. Cesar Navarro. We were moderated and facilitated by Mr. Han Paul of Seaboard. So good afternoon, everyone. So before I proceed, while other teams are planning how to spend, we are the ones in charge of looking for the money for you to spend. Diba? But our discussion really centered on taxonomy. So what is taxonomy? Green taxonomy. As we discussed, in ASEAN, there is no clear direction or no clear definition whether nuclear is part of the green taxonomy. So why is this important in financing? In the ASEAN region, there is an ASEAN Infrastructure Fund. It is an initiative supporting governments in Southeast Asia to prepare and finance infrastructure projects that promote environmental sustainability and contribute to climate change goals. So if nuclear projects will be identified as one of the green projects that will be introduced in ASEAN, there will be a lot of financing available. Initially, there is about $200 billion from the World Bank. This is according to Google. There is an ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility. That is how it is introduced. It is a dedicated fund established by the ASEAN member nations and being administered by ADB, the Asian Development Bank. So that was our discussion. And also we discussed about blended financing, because nuclear power plants are big ticket items, so to speak. It has to be a blended financing mechanism. It means it has to be financed both by the private sector and the government sector, because it has a mixture of public service and profitability, profit motive from the private sector. Any questions? And we are ready to answer your questions if you have any. Yes, sir. May question talaga, okay, sir.
Yes, the Philippines is in a very unique geopolitical situation at the moment. So, contending powers that be, you're talking about China, USA, and its allies, Japan and Korea, and Russia really want to display their products. So, nag-uunahan po sila sa kanila, sa isang isa.
Yes.
So that they decide the nuclear plant or nuclear plants in the Philippines. Because if there's a nuclear plant of their supply in the Philippines, it opens the entire ASEAN market. So hindi lang po yung sinasabi nyo na avenue for financing. I think we're talking of sovereign funds from these countries.
Yes, sir.
Not only us. So maybe it's more, at least for the first few plans, that is a very important angle to work if you are the Philippine government. Dapat po trabaho din po yan, yung option yan.
Yes, sir, it's noted. But during our discussion, the group discussion, we discussed about certain funding facilities. In fact, there are suppliers which are willing to finance, provided that you use their own technology. It was discussed.
Maybe also we should be more aware that we could possibly use the BOT law and unsolicited proposals, so that the government has to evaluate this proposal.
Yes.
It's a very, very big possibility here.
Kaya lang po, I think in the Philippines we have some problems with unsolicited proposals, because in the back end, as we discussed earlier, at the back end, the consumer suffers. Because it's not government funds, it's private fund. It is a private funded project. The cost to the consumer is higher rather than lower. Not unlike if it's financed by the country or the government itself. The tariffs and the rates, the power rates are.
Which makes nuclear magical, because it is intrinsically so much cheaper.
Yes.
For example, if we run coal plants for every 1,000 megawatts, we will be importing close to $1 billion of imported coal. But if it's a nuclear plant, it's only $30 million a year. So there's a huge intrinsic difference in the cost structure of nuclear. So that might offset all of that.
Yes, that's correct, sir. In fact, our facilitator he told us about their project. I think their nuclear power plant is so small. It displaces a lot of areas for agriculture. He has a lot of ideas. So that's it. Any more questions? Hearing none, thank you.
All right. Let's now invite on stage Director Amelia M. de Guzman of the DOE. Good afternoon, we're a radioactive waste management team from the OE, Department of National Defense, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DILG, TVOX, and a representative from Cambodia. So, rad waste management is in the heart of the nuclear energy program. So David, we were very ably facilitated by David has WNA. And so we started by saying, how do you start the nuclear conversation? Because rad waste is a very is a deep concern of the nuclear energy as a whole. And David said that he will start by zeroing in the rad waste. Rad waste issue is an issue with a capital I, so he said. So he would start by zeroing in on rad waste. And other people said, maybe we can start by showing the people. We're talking of IEC, so we can start by showing the nuclear landscape, like how many countries operate X number of reactors, and X number of accidents, and X number of volume. So we'll give figures to people. And one of the issues also is maybe it's economics. If we can manifest that nuclear power will lower the prices of power, then because the main issue in the Philippines is poverty. So a family will always be will always welcome lesser electricity bill. So we now we go to the final disposal. And David says, why are the people of Finland and Sweden, they welcome the deep geological repository? And we said maybe because these countries are so evolved that people place the highest confidence in their government, that all the measures are in place. So then we go to what role can the WNA play? And David said that WNA can facilitate a meeting where the nuclear business leaders will be put together and high-level meeting for high-level waste. So and maybe and he said that because one of the options in the subcommittee on rad waste management is a shared disposal for rad waste, and David asked us if it's a shared disposal outside of ASEAN, like Australia, or shared disposal facility within ASEAN. And we are all in agreement that it will be easier if the shared facility is in ASEAN because we have a common platform, and there are government intergovernment instrumentalities and treaties. And so we go back to Dr. Arcelia's presentation because Dr. Arcelia is a batchmate of mine. We're batchmates in the last century. So Dr. Arcelia said that maybe ASEAN can have regional licensing template. So maybe we can have a common shared waste management disposal facility. Okay.
Yes, I'd just like to react, as for shared waste disposal, many countries would be not willing to share the waste in the future because the waste has 20 times reusability in generation for reactors. So it's a great national wealth. Once people realize how much of a wealth it is, they might not want to share it at all. So that's another way of looking at the waste. Aside from that, the amount is so tiny. We're talking of 26 pieces of fuel assemblies from the NPP every year. Now the NPP will generate around 5 billion kilowatt hours a year. And for every kilowatt hour it produces, it will be depositing 6 centavos into a waste disposal trust fund for the life of the plant. So that's 300 million pesos a year to dispose of only 26 pieces of nuclear fuel as entries. It's also going to be putting 6 centavos per kilowatt hour for end of life decommissioning of the plant. So these are two huge funds that will be the billions of pesos by the end of the life of the plant, which will be spent for the waste disposal. As for Finland wanting to host the waste, it's because of the financial reward that comes along with hosting the waste, of the jobs that are going to be created, the compensation being paid by the industry to the side of the waste disposal. So in all of this, there's a financial reward. Example, in Labrador, in my district, down in my district, I've been working to convince the people to host nuclear power plants in exchange for free electricity. So we got the 2021 average consumption of Labrador. I said, you ask for 2 times that amount for every 1,000 megawatts that you will host for the entire life of the nuclear plant. And I said to them, if the electricity in Labrador becomes the cheapest in the entire Philippines, where do you think industry and investors will flock to set up their industries and businesses? I think we can create thousands of jobs that would increase your standard of living here. And I said, a 1,000 megawatt nuclear plant costs around $4 billion, 65% of which is local civil work. So right away from the get-go, you're going to be benefiting even if the plant is not yet running. So that has changed the dynamic as far as social acceptability is concerned. I think you need to approach selling nuclear to our people in a different light than what has happened in the past. So that has given me success in getting social buy-in to nuclear projects. I think that's the approach.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? Inputs?
Yes, one more.
Yes, yes.
Kanina, we're talking about NPP operations and maintenance. No? If you look at EIA numbers, United States, operations and maintenance, which include fuel, includes the end of life decommissioning trust fund, includes final disposition of nuclear fuel waste, includes regulation cost. It is $23 per megawatt hour. So once you have paid for the plant, once you have depreciated the plant, major profit, because ERC style here in the Philippines is you're allowed X number of years to recover your capital and put your 14% markup. Then after that, depreciated na yung planta. We're only talking of $23 per megawatt hour. Fuel cost is $6 per megawatt hour. I don't think you can approach those numbers with coal or gas. And we're talking multiples of that number. So that is the magic of nuclear power, especially in the context of the Philippines, where we have no fossil fuels of our own. We have to import everything. And the freight, you're talking of one Isuzu L containing 40 fuel assemblies, 40 pieces, once every 18 months, versus 51 Panamax-sized ships of 50,000 tons each. So if there's trouble in the West Philippine Sea, if there's a typhoon or there's a war or a blockade, automatic brownout if you have coal. Worst pa natural gas LNG because this is liquefied natural gas. You need expensive transport ships to infrastructure. You can get rid of all the fossil fuel shipping infrastructure if we're nuclear. That's a huge strategic what do you call it? Security. It's a national security issue. It's an energy security issue, an economic security issue. These are things that we have to consider. No, it's not just cheap power. It's a lot of these benefits all rolled into one.
All right, thank you very much, Congressman. Any other reaction or inputs? Malapit na ng mag-hearing nun. Going once? Going twice? Okay, and we will now end this roundtable discussion. Thank you.